Okay, so we'll start off with a quick little recap, just any questions and stuff. Any questions for me?
I think I just want to make sure the collar is tight enough.
Sure.
Or the right tightness.
So this is loose?
Okay.
Okay, so you see this? I can get my hand underneath real easy, okay? So what I suggest, do you have nail polish at home?
Yeah.
Is I'm gonna size it for you.
And mark the...
Correct, when you go home, just use a strip of nail polish. Yes, I know. You haven't
It's like
seen
you
me in a
haven't
couple of
said
days.
hi to me.
I know. Come here, you. She's supposed to be lab dachshund, right?
Yeah. Which, I know it could come out in many ways, but she really just looks like a lab puppy.
Yeah, she does.
She's just smaller than she would be otherwise.
I had
she was full lab. Wait, really?
Yeah.
What a combo.
Yeah. Does she get kind of feisty with you sometimes?
Oh, she's so squirmy.
Okay.
Like, I had to take her to the vet to get her nails cut because I tried 4 or 5 times and she just won't stay still when you're
For sure.
holding her.
So here, she started to get a little panicky. I don't know if you saw that. So this should be the correct notch. It may be able to do one more tighter.
Okay.
But this should be pretty good. And what I'll do is, with the excess skin, I'll pull it through underneath the collar. Because with puppies or these little guys, they can get like little folds. Okay. And then the probes fall between the folds and you don't have contact. Okay? If she starts to get panicky with you or mouthy, most people do be like, no, stop, quiet, stop, settle, right? And when you do that, you actually create more energy and you make her more mouthy. So the whole time, she started to go like that. Yeah. I just held, and then there was one point where she kind of, she didn't whine, but she like vocalized a tiny bit, and then nipped my hand. She's not being aggressive. It's just she's frustrated and squirmy, and she's trying to get out of there. So I just keep her in that moment. Eventually, the dog just goes, all right, well, this isn't gonna work. Okay. If you ever see anything like that, and again, if it's a concern, just ask me, and I'll let you know if there's something you feel with. Okay. Other questions? Okay, yeah. So that's now fitted correctly. We fit it very snug, okay? Because she has fur, it does act as a buffer. So for us, if you put it on your neck, you're gonna feel it right away. For dogs, not the same. So if you're ever working with her, you'll come up with the general range. We've had her as low as 4 to 5, but then she's also been as high as like 18, okay? And don't get married to a number. It all depends on the context. So like, let's say it's super busy, a lot of dogs and stuff, you may be at a much higher number than you would like on a day like this where it's pretty quiet, okay? It's really just common sense stuff. Once, let's say you practice in a very busy environment on a regular basis, because you're north,
yeah,
right?
I'm in East Lakeview, so I'm right by the park, the lake park.
Sure. So like that area, like on Broadway and Halsted and stuff, gets pretty trafficked, So like if you work her in that kind of environment, there's stuff always going on, your training is going to be really good, right? Because that's your context. But if you practice in a very calm, quiet like neighborhood, she'll be great there. But then the moment you step out to something a bit more realistic or busy, you're going to have issues. Okay, so your training is only as good as the environments you practice in, which is why with our daycare dogs and our boarding dogs, when they're training with us, we take them like to Home Depot, we take them out on the walks because we want it to be applicable and for it to transfer a lot easier to the owner because the dog's already been in that kind of context before. Okay, so what we'll start with first today is the heeling exercise. I'll have you just show me what you've been doing. Don't worry about making mistakes. Don't worry about right or wrong stuff. Mistakes are how we learn. And if you have any questions in that time frame, just feel free to ask, and then I'll help you out. Otherwise, we'll review it afterwards, and then we'll move on to the next one. Okay? She likes sticks?
I love sticks.
Do you care that she chews sticks? No? Okay.
Should I?
And we'll talk about it, but you can use this to also stop behaviors. Like, let's say she was eating goose poop and you didn't want her to eat goose poop, you can use the collar for that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, okay? Whenever you're ready.
Good girl. Heel. Heel, heel.
Good turn. Go ahead and relax your arms. Good. Good turn. And going to come to a stop. Good.
Good girl.
So how would you rate that?
That was better than she's ever done at home.
What's your number?
Real walks.
What's your number?
14.
14. Okay. In terms of her attention, what would you rate it percentage-wise?
I would say like 70. She
Okay,
had this
sure.
sniffing along the ground, but she
Yeah.
really responds.
For sure, right? So yeah, she's about 70%, right? So we actually want more than 70 because 70 becomes 60, becomes 50, becomes 40, okay? And what we're gonna do, we're gonna make a couple of changes. One thing is a lot of people unknowingly carry a lot of tension with them. So when you started off, you had your arms up, right? And a lot of it's because of the, just the force of habit, right? Of having to hold her back and stuff. So now when we do that with the e-collar, it'll actually work against you. It'll actually promote pulling. Okay, so we want to make sure that our arms are always nice and down, right beside us, and then we want to always give slack. Okay, now the slack is dependent on the environment. So if it's like a really busy environment, you may shorten the slack so that you keep her out of people's way, right? But if I have a nice, clear, open environment like this, I'll give much more slack. So if you're walking with Gili and she's right beside you, that tells you like, oh, like she has the opportunity to do all this craziness, but she's not. She has a good concept of what she's supposed to be doing, okay? Questions about that stuff? We're gonna try one more little run, and then we're gonna make some adjustments, okay?
Okay. Gili, heel.
Good. Good. I'm going to come to a stop right there.
Sit.
Good. And you can take a step back so you're next to her. There you go. That was actually much better. Okay. That was much better than the first one. Do you know how the heel word works? Like what it means to Gili?
Yeah, based on the video, what I got is that it means that she's like on. She needs to be
Correct.
next to me and
Correct.
following.
Correct. And once she's in heel, if you come to a stop, what should she be doing?
Sit.
Correct. What is she doing now?
Stand.
Right, so tap. 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 Go ahead and bump your number. So like 1820. Tap. 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 A little bit of tension towards you. She's going down. Tap. Lightly pull up. Tap. And just going to remove the leash from her arm there. Good. And she stays put. Excellent. All right. So, yes, heel means walk with me, stay with me, sit when I stop. Okay. Some people think of heel as a come to my side, right? I don't teach it that way. That's a separate command. So if you say heel, don't expect Gili to walk to you, right? All you need to do is if she's over here, you can say heel and start walking, and walking straight to your leg is easy. But if she's on my right, I don't say heel and expect the dog to come around me to position, okay? But some people do teach that. She has a very basic heel, just means walk with me, stay with me, sit when I stop, okay? So once you've issued that cue, it's her job to do this, right? But then it's your job to reinforce the behavior, okay? Because, she's a pup and she's highly distracted, right? But the e-collar, of course, makes it easier for you to get her attention back. So like here, I can already see her nose hitting the ground again. I personally don't care about that because her butt is on the ground. However, if I see that nose ends up leading to wandering, then I eliminate it, okay? So when you said heel is like when she's on, right? She's clocked in. So right now I'm clocked in. I'm working with you. I'm not on my phone talking to my friends. I'm not enjoying a beer or anything like that. But I can do that after the training session because now I'm off the clock, right? So I want you to think of the same thing for Gili. Right now she's clocked in. her job is to do the task that she was trained to do, which is to walk with you, stay with you, sit with your staff. Okay. If she doesn't, with the e-collar makes it very easy because yes, you just press the button and the dog should respond. If you find she's not listening, so you're at 14 earlier.
I was at 14 earlier.
Correct, and now you're like, like pull up. There you go, good. Then we had to raise it, and now we have good contact. So that one tap, boop, she goes back to this, right?
Yeah.
So she got correct down, but then look at this. She's sniffing the ground again, right? So this is where it's kind of like, I call it math. So I go, okay, 18 was enough to get her to correct the position, but not enough to disengage her from wanting to explore the environment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, it doesn't mean you have to jack it up right off the bat, but I start noticing these things, and I'm more inclined to do so I get rid of this right away, okay? Because eventually, as humans, we tend to just get complacent, and you're at some point you may go like, wow, Gili's so good, and you end up becoming a little bit more lenient, and the next thing you know, you have an untrained dog again. Because she's constantly learning. She's learning what she can and can't do. So if one day she starts to test the boundary, and you're like, well, you've been so good, I'm gonna let it go. She learns like, oh, like mom didn't tap me today. So what happens if I do it tomorrow and then the next day, right? So as best you can, be very black and white. Okay, it makes her life easier. And what you can do here is actually stay where you are and lightly pull forward, tap, lightly pull forward, tap, tap, pull forward, tap, right there, almost. Forward, tap, forward. You got it, and then up. Yeah. We'll take that. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to get her here, right?
Yeah.
I don't need perfect.
Right.
I just need somewhere right here.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is I'm giving you more opportunities to discipline. Okay. She laid down on the scope of what dogs could do. Like who cares?
Right.
Right. But the way her brain works is, oh, mom had me like this, and then I decided to do this, and there was no consequence. So can I just sit the ground? Can I just go run and greet that dog? Can I go and jump on this person? The small things lead to bigger things, right? So again, being super black and white makes her world very clear. Mom says something, do it. No exceptions, okay? And you don't have to be mean and having to be forceful, right? The e-collar does all that for you. It can whisper and it can yell, okay? So that's why I love that tool. Plus you get off leash control. Okay. So questions so far about any of this stuff? Okay. So have you been able to employ the heel in your neighborhood?
Yes, but it has never worked this well.
Like this. Okay.
Yeah. She never sits when I stop.
Okay.
But I also wasn't having to then make her sit.
Correct. So what happened was she had an idea, right? And that's why we have these sessions, because I told everybody we have to transfer to you, right? So dogs are very much about association. So she's learned at Jesse's facility, it's structured, it's disciplined, this is what's expected, and she does that, right? So it's like sending a kid to school. Once you learn the structure of school, like you go in, and when the bell rings, you have to find your class, have your notebook for that class ready, and all that stuff, right? But then when you go home, you're not in that structure anymore, right? So if she's not had that experience with you, she's going to go like, well, whenever I'm at home, mom, it's a free for all. But now that you start doing the tapping, she's like, wait a minute, this is just the same as it was at Jesse's. Okay, so it makes transference very easy, because if we tap it at 18 and if you tap it at 18, it's the same feeling. Okay, so then it's just a matter of what does Gili need in order to perform. Okay, in almost every situation where a client is having issues, it's because they're not high enough. Okay, maybe because they feel bad, they feel guilty, or they're not aware that they're of like how high is okay in terms of the remote and stuff like that, which is fine. So for you, let's say in your neighborhood, because she's more comfortable, you might find 18 actually doesn't work, even though it's working here. Okay, because one thing is there's my presence. She already has an association with me, so she's like, Jesse, I never see Jesse unless it's at the facility and we're training or something, right? So that can also be one thing where she's gonna get into line. All that means is when you're in your neighborhood, maybe it's 24, maybe it's 30, maybe it's 64. Yep. Yep. And balance. Very good. Now she's strong. So, if you ever are struggling, that's the first thing I want you to think about is just your number. And then we go up in increments. For a girl like Gili, you can go like 3 to 5. And then don't feel bad if you get a yip. Okay, dogs bite each other. Like for everybody. This will never match a dog bite in terms of discomfort or just even the damage that it can do. All it is muscle contraction, right? The idea is not to make her yelp, but at the same time, she has to be compliant. Okay? I get some cases, it's very rare, where the dog is super vocal, and the owner could be very low, even lower than that, and the dog will be yelping. And the owner's like, oh, my heart, right? I'm like, yeah, but the dog's not even listening. Like, they're yelping, but they're not listening. So it's like, just go up higher, make them yelp anyways, but then they're listening, right? So I don't foresee that here. The only time we ever had issues with Gili, like there was that one video I included.
Right, where she was really difficult.
Yes, you can see her being resistant, right? And people don't think about that stuff, right? Or if they see that, they're like, oh, the dog must be too stressed out, or like, you know, maybe they're overwhelmed and we should stop. I'm like, well, you could, but realistically speaking, when you need your stuff for your obedience to work, it's in a stressful situation, and you have to work the dog through that. Right? That's why whenever we see that, it looks bad if you're not aware. That's why I have to put the notes, you know, and go, this may happen. So like yesterday we had a client here in the spot, her dog kept shutting down and trying to lay down. It was too stressed out, nervous dog. And we worked the owner through it. And by the end of the class, the dog was much more confident. Upright. I told her, your inclination is to stop, but you have to work the dog through it, otherwise you'll be and you get hurt. Okay? So if you feel that, if that ever happens and you feel stuck and you don't know how to figure it out, you can stop, reset, shoot me an email, tell me what happened, and I'll explain it to you. But ideally, try to push through it. Okay? If you're going incrementally, we shouldn't get that response. That's why we go in small little chunks. If you went from 10 to like 45, that's a really big jump. I would expect to get some kind of response. Okay?
Yeah.
So ever since you did that final correction, Gili's been sitting there much calmer, right? So that was about 5 to 6 corrections in, right? That's normal. Because again, she's associating tap with you now, okay? That's why I said earlier, the stricter you are, the better she is. So had you done that sooner, you would have created this a little bit earlier, and she would have been that way even longer, okay? So now what Gili's learning is she's learning a new mom. She's learning mom with discipline and tools, right? And your dog becomes what you allow them to do. So if you allow a lot of non-structure and sniff whenever you want, play, you get a party. Okay? When you practice discipline, and then when she's doing well, she gets rewards of play and freedom, then you get a disciplined, structured dog. Okay? And then a lot of problems actually go away with that. Okay? Issues with dogs typically stem from a lack of knowing what to do. She's a dog, so the stuff that she does to keep herself preoccupied is not something that like a human can do, right? And then it doesn't translate. I don't care if a dog chews sticks, that's why I asked earlier. I don't care if they chew bark, I don't care if they chew rocks and stuff. They're a dog, right? That's what they do. But for humans, they're like, oh, it's gross, you know? And I'm just like, all right, if you don't want your dog to, fine, we'll correct it. But we're not the same behavior-wise, okay? Question so far?
No.
Okay. So if Gili were to pass you, do you know how you go about correcting it?
And if she doesn't listen, it's like cold work.
If she passes you?
Like gets in front of you.
Sure. Okay. I have to watch that video. I'm pretty sure that's not Enrique did.
Just tapping.
Almost tapping, and you would turn.
He turned, right.
Turn,
Sorry.
but you remembered it.
Just
Yes, but you remembered it. It's super important, okay?
Yeah.
So most people would do what you said initially. Tap and pull her toward you, okay? That will be a forever problem. So it's a very common way actually that people train like that, either dog owners or even some dog trainers. The problem with that is the expectation is if I punish this or correct the pulling behavior, and they'll say no, and when the dog is here, they say heel. Okay? It requires a dog to understand what all those words mean for one, but then to also be able to like tie all those things together. It's too much for a dog. They're very simple. They don't know what no means, they don't know what heel means. They associate what they mean through repetition. So for us, when Gili would get ahead of us. We would start remoting at the appropriate number. Yep. At the appropriate number and turn. So for Gili, she'd feel it. She goes, I don't like this. She turns and she goes, oh, Enrique's going that way. And she'd catch up and they would stop. But then she'd pass again. And it would kick in. And she goes, oh, I don't like this. Enrique's going that way now. And she'd catch up and it would stop. So what she learned was every time I feel this, the handler's usually going the opposite, or always going the opposite way. So what happens if I stay and walk right beside them? Nothing. Oh, so this means to move my left leg. Okay. So whenever we're doing e-collar to teach something, we have to direct the dog into how to shut off the pressure and give them something to attach to. Okay. When it comes to stopping a behavior, it's very simple. You just remote. Okay. So if she was eating goose food, she would just remote. She would, oh, all right. And then she tries it again. Remote. Oh. Every time I put my mouth on goose food, I get remoted. I don't like it. What happens if I don't eat goose food? Nothing. Okay, right? So stopping behaviors is very simple. Teaching behaviors is where things get a little complicated. Okay. So forever, okay, if Gili ever got ahead of you, you would do an immediate 180 right turn and remote and continue to until Gili were to line up to your left leg. Okay. That's why the slack is important. Because if you have it tight and you turn, a lot of times the dogs will turn with you just because you have it so short. Does that make sense? Yeah. So when you give the slack, you allow her to get distance so that when you remote her, she has to close that gap and then she goes, oh, I'm supposed to be here, not over there. Okay? Questions about that? So I saw you do your turns. Your turns look pretty good. Did you have any questions about those? Okay, so we're gonna do another kind of walkthrough. What I'm gonna have you do during this run is speeding up and slowing down. Okay, changing paces. So if you speed up and you slow down, what should she do?
She should slow down.
Correct. If she's not paying attention, you slow down, and then you're gonna yes. Okay. I know it's a little quiz here. Okay. So, but that's good. So that's why I'm gonna have you do that intentionally. And then if you have any questions, just let me know. Okay. Whenever you're ready. Gonna relax that left arm. There you go. You're okay.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're fine. Good. Go ahead and speed up. Give a tap here. Good. 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 Relax that arm. Go ahead and try walking. You're going to tap. There you go. You're still going to be in heel, but I'm going to have you cut onto the grass and then back onto the sidewalk. Good. Good. Go ahead and slow to a stop. Good. Okay, that was really good. So, very common for people, that tension.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll always point it out when I see it. It'll make you more aware because you can unintentionally, again, untrain her. Dogs have this thing called opposition reflex. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
What is it?
So it's like if I'm pulling, then she's gonna pull the opposite.
Correct. Yes. Where'd you hear that?
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, almost like no one knows what that is. But good, that's exactly what it is, okay? So, if you're pulling back on Gili subconsciously, right, and she starts to go against it, and then you start to go to remote, now we have conflicting signals, okay? That's why it's very important that we're always nice and relaxed. Also, nobody wants to walk around like this.
Yeah.
It's awkward, right? But I understand in the beginning because your dog is pulling, right? And then there's tension. So when you walk with Gili, there should never be tension. You know, you have to, right? Nice, good job. Give a little bit of a pull through that scratch there. Yep. Good. Excellent. Good. There was like what, 3 taps there?
Yeah.
Yep. So, slack leash. What was it going to go
Just say, also nobody wants to seem like this.
with? Awkward, right? Oh, yeah. So, the leash is communication, right? So if you're walking with Gili, like right now, was there any tension that you felt? No, right? That's how it's supposed to be. For a lot of people in the beginning, it's weird because they're so used to the dog pulling. It's like a constant reminder of my dog's right next to me, right? Now you have to get used to Gili being next to you and using like, does she have tags? Yeah, she's got like a tag or two. The tags will start, they make sounds, right? So like, my dogs are all off leash trained, and I used to walk them off leash like in the South Loop. And I could always tell if someone was lagging because the sound of their tags would change, right? I would hear one get faint and I would turn, there's my Chihuahua trying to get on the pole. Get you right over here, right? So I want you to get used to just like her pitter patter of her paws walking, her collar clicking against the tag, because that's what's going to tell you where she is placement wise, okay? So that you're nice and relaxed. So then if I do start to feel tension, right, my arm starts to do this. What does this tell me?
That she's going off.
Correct, she's going to the left, right?
Yeah.
So then I can tap, bring over to my, as I'm moving, she comes back in and it keeps walking, right? So if we're relaxed and the dog is doing what they're supposed to, there should be no tension, but if there is tension, it's a heads up to you of she's out of place, she's doing something she shouldn't, right? So if I'm walking and I feel my hand go back, maybe she's stopped to poop, maybe she's stopped to pee, maybe she's tired, maybe she's lagging, or maybe she's sniffing the ground, that tells me, uh-oh, not the right spot, tap, right over here, okay? Which, let's say Gili stops to use the bathroom, okay? This is kind of like up in the air. I get it, dogs have to use the bathroom on the walk and stuff, and I mentioned earlier, if you give some slack or any leniency, it may become more of a habit. My guys, on occasion, they're in a walk, we'll just stop the poop, because they gotta go. Like, whatever, I pick it up, we go on, no problem. But they don't, like, abuse it, okay? There are some dogs that they'll, they'll stop to pee or something, the owner will give it to them, thinking like, okay, that was it, and then the dog keeps doing it. And I go, now the dog's taking advantage because they're knowing this is the exception and you won't reinforce it, right? So if the dog starts to abuse that little bit of leniency, I'll keep walking and remote them to correct them, come back, and then shortly thereafter I'll stop and say break to give them a potty break, but at least it's on my terms. So you don't reinforce any bad habits, okay? Your turns look pretty good. Just to double check when you're turning left, you know which leg you lead that with. Growth guy.
He's a big publisher now, and talks about like always my right leg.
So you lead it with the right leg, right? So let's try this. Let's go and review those turns. Your pivots did look correct, okay? Most people pivot correctly. So the pivot looks like this, where you're going back the opposite way, okay? The left turn, or the crossover into Gili, looks like this, moving over her, okay? So then
And I step in front of her to do that?
you would continue your movement.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna just see what you picked up from the video, and then we'll tweak it. Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
And relax. Good pivot. Good. Okay, so you got it done. You got away with it because she's tiny.
Yeah.
We'll do a couple more. Yeah, it's fine. There you go. That was a lot better. Good. Excellent. And go ahead and slow to a stop. That's fine right there. Good. Very good. Okay. So, did you see the first one? You led it with your left leg.
Yeah.
And what happened?
I like knocked it into her nose.
You had to punch her a little bit, right? And then when you switched to your right leg, you just crossed over. It was very smooth. Okay. So that's why there's specifics to how we use those legs when we do turns. Okay. So when we're walking, or when you're walking with Gili, you know your path preemptively, right? You know, oh, I'm gonna go to the store, right? I'm going to Starbucks. So I'm gonna make a left here. I'm gonna turn here. I'm gonna stop here. She doesn't. So leg movements are very important with that. Otherwise, you're gonna end up losing your dog. Okay. So, do you remember what we do before we stop and turn? Correct. Okay. Always. You drive? Yes. What do you do before you stop? Before you turn. Exactly. Right. Same thing for your dog. So imagine slowing down is kind of just like pumping your brakes, and if Gili's paying attention, she slows down too. But a lot of times, what happens if you're walking at a normal pace and you just abruptly stop, right? That's what's gonna happen. So slow down if Gili is paying attention. You'll a lot of times see the dog kind of stutter because they're like, oh, something's changing, and they'll slow down with you, which then allows them to take that that crossover with that right leg, or see your leg pivoting out and move you much more smoothly. Okay. The only thing that I would suggest that you work on is being a bit more assertive in those turns. Okay. Now I know you're learning, and you're having to think now, and you're having to remember everything from the video, and you're doing really well. Okay. So good job on that. So. The reason why for being assertive or just direct is if you start to fumble or like you get stuck, people tend to like stop and like slow down, the dog is thrown off. And they're like, you know, she's looking at you for direction, right? So the turns that I make when we're going to the left, very sharp cut with the right leg, we're moving in at 90-degree angle, okay? And left, and then we follow through with that right. So if we do it correctly, we should be within the path of the sidewalk. The pivot was correct. The only thing I would do is kind of
Come here.
a bit more with that extension, back, and then forward, back the other way, okay? Let's try that again. We're gonna make those little adjustments, and then we'll move on to the next thing. Questions? Okay. Got some bikes coming. A lot of distractions today. Good job. Whenever you're ready. Good turn. Remember the slow prior. Let's try 3 more left turns just like that one. Yep, keep going, keep going. There you go, good. Much better. Good, 2 more. Very good turn. Last one. And it was slow to a stop. Right. And light pull forward towards you. Tap. There we go. A little bit more. Tap. Tap. Better. Much better. Good. So, out of all those turns, which one do you think was the best?
I think it was second to last.
Yes, the 4th one.
Yeah.
That one before that one.
Yeah.
Right? So, your 5th one was actually pretty good, but you had to bump into her, right? Do you know why that is?
I didn't slow down.
Correct,
Yeah.
right? You actually just went straight into the turn,
Yeah.
okay? So we're gonna try 3 more.
Okay.
I'm gonna have you be a bit more brisk with the pace, so it gives you a pretty noticeable slowdown
Okay.
to the left turn, okay? Let's try it again. Very good. 2 more. Very good. Last one. Beautiful. And slow to stop. See that difference?
Yes.
So, when everything's working correctly, it should be seamless. If you're ever like, man, Gili's like doing a really shitty job, comes back to the handler, okay? The human knows what we're doing, and it's just, of course, building that habit. Before I forget, if your intention is to make a left turn, and you slow down, you've done your job, but Gili keeps going, a lot of people try to rush the turn, right? So if that happens, I wouldn't turn left. What would I do?
Turn right.
I know, correct, to realign her. right? And then if I need to turn again, so I'm back in the same direction, and then if she's lined up, I would slow down to turn left, okay? So it's our job to make sure that we keep her on that hip. It's very common for people, especially coming to a stop, because they're thinking, well, I was just gonna stop anyways, right? So they slow down and stop, the dog goes and just pull them back. I'm like, but you're untraining the dog now. You're teaching the dog to forge ahead and not listen to the slowdown, okay? So it should be very easy. There shouldn't be no need for remote. On occasion, maybe a little bit of leg bumping, but if everything's working together like it should, there should be none of that stuff, okay? So now we're gonna go to the pivots. So the 180 pivots going to your immediate right, so you're going back the opposite way. Same thing, you're gonna wanna slow down prior, and of course you're sticking out that left leg, you're gonna pronounce it a bit more, and drag it for a quick second, and then back to the right to go back the opposite way.
Okay.
Questions?
By dragging, you mean so like...
Yeah, like just kind of waiting on it for a second, because it gives her time to loop around your leg, and you're only doing it this way, again, when she's paying attention. If Gili were to be ahead of you and you were doing a correctional turn, you wouldn't worry about that.
Okay.
She's not paying attention. You just turn, tap, 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 and bring her back to the leg. Okay? Whenever you're ready. Beautiful. Good turn. All right. Very good. 3 more. Good. 2 more. Good. And last one. Good. Slow to stop when you're ready. Beautiful. Right?
Yeah.
So now it's starting to come together.
Yeah.
So now what we're going to do is same thing, but I'm going to have you like freestyle it and interchange everything, okay? Speeding up, slowing down, stopping to starting, the left turns, and then the pivots. You kind of just mixing it all up. Again, if everything is working together, we have her attention. She should be right at your side. No remoting. It's all through body language now. Okay? Questions?
No.
All right, don't screw up.
Everyone's watching.
Relax that arm. Yeah, it's fine. Come on through. Good.
Oh, wait, I don't do it for like dairy food. Guess what?
Nice turn. Nice turn. Try a pivot again. There you go. Good. Tap, tap the speeder up. There she goes. We had a girl. Good. And slow to stop when you're ready. Very good. Right? The only thing I saw was when you first started, because I saw that the people coming, so you fanned out to the grass, right? Is on a couple of the pivots, instead of doing extension like this, you actually like swung the leg around like this, kind of, right? Now, if you're doing a soft right, that would be correct. You would use your left leg, but you would just turn like that. Same thing for the left turn, you just cross with your right leg, and you keep going straight back that way. The reason why I showed those 180s is because in case you need to make a correction, but you space-wise, you know, if there's someone here, you're gonna have to use your pivot, right? But if you have the space, you can also do a crossover as well. Okay. So that is the heel package. Okay, walk with me, stay with me, sit when I stop. That's her job. Your job is to communicate using your legs. And I think you were doing all the heels with the left leg, which I think Enrique talks about in the video, right? So that's correct. That's the reason why we do that is peripheral range. She she learns that this means we're walking, and in more advanced training, right leg means moving. Okay. Think here. Questions about any of that? Do you remember how to do the stay?
Just like in general.
For her, right? Like how we apply it.
It would be, I would
No, ella
tell her
no
to stay, and then I would start to walk away, and if she comes toward me, I'd tap, step back and start over.
Close, very close. So
Quer tentar jogar amiga?
we would say the stay, right? And no, I know she's lower.
Yeah, I know that left hand.
So I don't worry about that. I just go stay, right, like that. I might wave a little bit more in the front so she has that range right there. I give the stay, and then we step out in the beginning with the right leg so that we're facing her like this. Okay? So that was correct. Now, you said if she gets up, you would tap, right? That's tap. And then because we've done heel, if you tap her, she might just think to move to your leg, right? So what we also do is when we do the step out, we anticipate that the dog might make a mistake. So we want to have our leash in our left hand a little bit higher up. And when you step out, you keep your hand like this, so in case Gili did get up, you would lightly pull up and tap to guide her back into the position. Okay, so it's it helps to give her that immediate stop, because if it's completely slack when you do so and you tap her, she is most likely going to rush towards you because she's thinking heel, and we want to prevent that from actually happening. Okay? Questions? You got it?
I think so.
Okay, so go ahead. We'll start off with the stay here. So
Okay. Stay.
correct, right, and then back to her side. We're gonna make it a little bit easier for you, okay? We're gonna just take a step out, right? Good. And you can praise here, good girl. Right. And what I'll have you do is you're gonna go into a heel, you're gonna walk and then pivot, come back, stop, and then do another stay from the heel, okay? Now, so right there.
Should have pulled her leash. I know.
But I'll tap. There you go. I'm going to tell you what you can do, because you're anticipating mistake.
Right.
Okay. That's okay. But we don't want to make a mistake happen by pulling the leash. Okay. So what you're going to do is go ahead and position yourself next to Gili, and then with your right hand, go ahead and pull slack through. A little bit more. Right there. Okay. So what you've done there is you've limited range of motion. Okay, so you're just taking up the slack. Now there's no tension, right? It's still loose, but if she did become impulsive, she's not going to get very far. Okay, so it's the same thing that you're doing, but here you're already kicking in with tension, and if you kick in and she feels it, you're actually going to make the jump or lunge happen. Okay, so and then as you get used to this, and you can do this even when you stop, you come to a red light, you just do this. Just preemptively, in case there's someone with a dog behind you, or like right here, they sneak up on you, and then once the light turns green, you just get the slack up and you go forward again. Okay. Once you get used to that habit, you don't even think about it. So anything that you know she's a sucker for, whether it's like people wanting to say hi or dogs or anything like that, instead of pulling back, simply shorten your leash within their range of motion. Okay. Whenever you're ready, heel, pivot, back to a stay. Good pivot.
Excuse me.
Good. Very good. Excellent. And now here, because you praise her, right? She's still in a stay. Go ahead and step out again. Good. Let's try one more. Good. So you can see where she thought about it, right?
She did. She shifted in her seat.
Yes, that's good. Go ahead and go into heel. Good crossover. Very good. Good. Good pivot. Good, and slow to stop when you're ready. Good. Stay. Good. So, on a couple of those, I don't think you said heel.
I did not.
Right? So, technically, if you cue the stay, your leg movement was correct, right? You want to override it with the heel. Technically, she's not supposed to move, right? But also technically, since you did left leg, she was supposed to.
Got it.
So this is where things get a little tricky,
Got it.
right? So left leg, of course, means walk with me. Right leg means don't, which is why we're pivoting out with the right leg. We're conditioning that behavior, right? And right now, I'm making it awkward because that's not realistic to get you used to the movements, okay? So in obedience, the new command overrides the old command, okay? So if you put her, so earlier, when you first started, Gili didn't sit for the heel, you said sit, and then you tapped her and then she did it. Technically, that's not a heel, that's a sit,
Got it.
okay? So it's a little confusing in the beginning, but once you understand the concepts,
Yeah.
it's super simple, okay? So if I put Gili in a sit and I come to a stop, if I put Gili in a heel and I come to a stop, what is she supposed to do?
She should sit.
She should sit.
As part of the heel.
As part of the heel, correct. But it's not a sit, it's a heel, right? So then the way that we use the word stay is if the dog's already in position, okay? So we don't say sit stay and we don't say down stay. Okay? It's implied with
Y'all might want to just walk off.
So,
me and KJ can bike
if
up
we
and
say-
catch up, all right?
I'm praying that I see another
if we go into heel and I come to a stop and she auto sits and I were to move again, her inclination will most likely be to move with me, right? So that's why we give the stay. So I can't say sit because she's already sitting, according to human logic, right? I could say down, and we'll talk about that. But if I'm like, I just need you to not move for a second, stay. Walk off, do what I have to do, come back, heel, and then we move again, okay? So if Gili were to be in the home and she's laying down on her own time, and you decide like, I need you to not move, we wouldn't say down, we would stay. Now it becomes the down command. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I know a lot of trainers use it like sit, stay, and then down, stay, and they go like stay, 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 and they walk back and stuff. We don't do that. Okay? That's kindergarten stuff. We're in high school, college now. Okay, so that's the only time I use it. In my opinion, the stay is kind of like the least useful command because if you need her to not move, you're probably going to say down or place or something like that. Okay. In terms of how you could apply it or practice it, is let's say you're on a walk, you come to a red light, you stop, shadow sits, like, all right, well, let's do a little bit of training, stay, you walk around right there, come back, light turns green, heel, and we start moving again, right? Or like, let's say she poops, and you don't want her doing all this while you pick up her poop. One way you can do it is I lightly pull up and tap to put her in the sitting position, which you technically say sit, but for the sake of applying the stay, I do that, and then say stay, pick up the poop, good girl, come back, heel, then I walk towards the trash can, I stop, stay, keep the hand on my leash, go with the garbage, come back, heel, and we walk again, okay? So that's a couple of examples of how you can apply it either during a walk or realistically. Okay?
Got it. Yeah.
Questions about that?
Yeah.
So we're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna do the stay, and you're gonna pivot off, but now you're gonna, after you come in front of her, you're gonna then start to do a little bit of movement around her.
Okay.
When you do this, if Gili pivots like this, okay, that's okay, because her butt's on the ground.
Okay.
Right? That problem tends to almost always fix itself.
Okay.
Now if she gets up or stands up, you would up and tap to correct her, and then continue your movement around. Okay. Whenever you're ready. Good turn. Nice pivot. Good pivot. Good.
Stay.
Good. Try going a full circle around her and then landing on her right side. Good, and heel. Let's try 2 more like that. Good pivot. Good turn. Good. Perfect.
Stay.
Good. Try one more. Heel.
Heel.
Good. Nice. Good. Right, good job. Good.
Stay.
Excellent. Very good. Easy peasy. Questions about that? So now the next ones we have are the sit and down commands respectively. So sit to me is another kind of overused but least useful command. Reason is typically when people use sit, like the dog's jumping or something, jumping at them or like lunging at someone, you're like, no, sit, right? So when we look at things like that, yes, you can teach the dog to sit when they feed people, or you can just teach them to jump, right? That's like the easiest thing. It's just correct the jumping. I don't care if the dog's standing. I don't care if the dog's wiggling and walking through legs and stuff. I just don't want jumping. The sit is an extra step. It's not wrong, but people, you know, they have their lives, they have their jobs and their families and stuff. They're not wanting to have to like go through this whole process to fix something. It's just correct the jumping, okay? In terms of like where you could use it, you know, whenever you're gonna give her something, a bone, a treat, food, when you're gonna leash her up or anything like that, that's where I would suggest using the sit, because then you create what we call like the dog version of saying please, right? So if you pull out a bully stick and she sits down, it's very cute. Okay, yes, you can have it, right? As opposed to jumping for it. Sit doesn't really have any kind of durational application, meaning like right now while I'm yapping, you know, like she's been sitting the entire time each time, right? For like 5-10 minutes at a time, which is really good, but it's not realistic, okay? That's why she goes to lay down, because she's like, well, hell, if we're gonna be here for a bit, might as well just lay down, right? Make me so comfortable. But we of course have to correct it, and we would actually put her in a down command. Okay, so down is meant for extended use. Down is, hey, here's my friend, we're gonna talk for 15-20 minutes. Yep. And your job is to lay down and not move for that period of time, okay? So here, we have to, of course, reinforce what we've given, so we have to make that sit happen. But realistically speaking, if you know you're gonna be anything longer than a couple of minutes, use that down command, okay? You wanna kind of beat her to the punch, this way she doesn't think that you kind of reinforce that behavior, okay? In the video, I believe it's Brianna, right, that she shows like put a little bit of pressure on the shoulders with the light tap. So I'm gonna have you go to dip down your remote. We're gonna go down to like 4. And you're gonna go in and just position yourself next to Gili on the right side, okay? And you're gonna very, very lightly touch her shoulder. You're not gonna say anything, just very lightly gonna touch her shoulder and give a tap on the collar. There we go. Okay. So think of that as like the sign language for lay down. Okay. This is how we teach it. So earlier I said you have to guide or direct the dog through pressure to teach him how to turn it off. Right? So if I just remoted her, I don't expect any dog to just think like, oh, okay,
Right.
and lay down. So what we did was we shortened the leash and we used our hand to direct her in a downwards fashion. And the remote made her think like, hey, I don't like this. How do I turn it off? And then when she went into that position, everything disappeared. And she goes, oh, right? And then we kept repeating it. And eventually she's like, oh, she'd feel the tap and she would lay down. She got the concept. And then the next thing was, okay, lay down and now don't get up. Okay? So the reason why I'm showing you the hand portion of it is because if you ever were to tell Gili to down, or she were to be in a down position, and you have to correct it, we wouldn't want to repeat the word. Okay? We never repeat our words. We always use remote to reinforce everything. So earlier, when you were standing here and she like laid down twice, you just tapped twice, and all she did was sit back up. She associated like this is what I'm supposed to do to fix everything, right? So the reason why we're able to get that kind of response is because we don't repeat. Most people repeat. Okay, so by eliminating that and using strictly remote, the dog starts to get a very good concept of what the tap means depending on the context. Okay, so if I told Gili to down, she does so. 20 minutes goes by and she goes, I'm bored, and she gets up. I would start tapping and then use my hand to guide her very gently. If you put too much physical with the remote, you're going to create panic most likely. Okay, she's going to start jumping around. It's because you have 2 points of pressure that are too much. So that's why this is very subtle, and this is what makes her go into position. The reason why we went down to like 3 or 4 is because at, what was it, like 19 earlier or something? Yeah. Is higher numbers make dogs move faster or make them jumpy. So if we wanted to go into a laying down position, if I use too much power, I might actually make her jump up. So we go down more subtle, okay? What you can also do here is with your left foot, go to step on the leash there. Like that, perfect, okay? So like, let's say you go to a restaurant patio, or maybe you come here to Oz Park to read a book or something. Bring Gili with you. You sit down on the bench, Gili down, she lays down, you step on the leash, and then you read your book. So then if you start to feel tugging on your shoe, what does that mean? Correct, right? And since you've limited range of motion, ideally you shouldn't even need to use your hand, okay? If she looks panicked, and panic looks like a lot of scuttling around, or bucking back, or yipping. Okay, so if you see that that's panic, my suggestion is you work through it. Just be very patient. Double check that number, that it's not too high. 2, 3, 4, even 5, 6, 7 shouldn't be too much. But if you're at 7, I'd most likely go down to 3 to 4. Okay, you keep that tapping very slow and rhythmically. Tap, 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 and then very lightly just put that hand on the shoulder. She lays down. We stop everything. We go back to reading our book. Okay. No? All right. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna have you try. We're gonna do a quick little heel, back, stop. She's gonna sit. We're gonna wait a moment. I'm gonna have you try one more time with the hand on the shoulder, and then we're gonna try it with the verbal cue. Okay? Whenever you're ready. Right, there you go. Good. Okay, so now she's in a down. Okay, so even though you've not said it verbally, she's meant to hold that for as long as you need it. 30 minutes, 2 hours, 3 hours. You pick and choose. Don't feel bad. Don't like you're being mean or anything like that. It'll keep her out of trouble, and you can take her to nice places. Okay, so now we're gonna try it again. You're gonna do a quick heel. When you come to stop, I'm gonna have you wait for a second, and then all you're gonna do is simply say down. Okay? Good distraction.
Down.
Good. And then there you go. Good. And then relax your leash. Go ahead and do the step. Perfect. Now, is it nice having a dog that listens?
Yeah.
Okay. So I love the energy. Praise is great. One thing I'm gonna want you to be mindful of is I understand you're happy, right? Oh my God, that was good, right? Is energy, right? So when we want obedience, then I want you to think calmness. Okay, I'm not saying don't reward your dog. Do so, because it actually gives you a distraction, right? So if I go to Gili, like, girl, hey, right? For laying down, you're putting energy into her in a position where we want her to not move. Now, so if I retract, I would assume she's probably gonna be like, give me more of that, right? You would have to correct her. Okay, so that's just the only thing, is by all means, praise her however you like, but be prepared that when you go to remove yourself, she's going to want more and you will have to correct her, okay? Because people will forget that part.
Yeah.
They'll think, oh, you laid down, that's great, right? And they praise and the dog gets up and then the owner doesn't see it. I'm like, you gotta correct that. They're like, why? I'm like, because you said down, until you say break, that command is in effect, okay? And you would just be at the 4 to 5. You wouldn't repeat the down, you'd simply just start remoting. Ideally, she should just lay back down again through pressure, okay? If she doesn't, again, if she looks panicked, use your hand to give her a bit of guidance, okay? Now, I don't know if you noticed on both those times you use your hand, she kind of did this with your mouth, right? That upwards thing. She's a little picky, okay? Like when I was moving with the collar or working with the collar and stuff like that. So it's okay, just, you know, that's why you have to be very gentle, because again, if you put too much pressure, she's gonna protest it, okay? So it should be this easy. If you give Gili the down command and it's not that smooth, okay? You would kick in with pressure first before you would try to apply your hand, okay? Because we want to see, will she just do it through remote? Part of the reason is if Gili is off leash, your only lines of communication is that remote, right? Outside of the word, right? But the remote is the only thing that can make Gili decide or make the decision to come back. So the more you get used to just using that remote to communicate, should something happen one day, you're going to be more inclined to do that, okay? Most people's inclination when they can't control their dog is to physically control their dog. I've had people, when they do the recall stuff, the dog takes off and they grab the long leash and the long leash rips through their hand and it gets a rope burn. And then I'll ask them, like, why did you use your remote? And they go, I panicked. You know, it's instinctual for people to want to physically restrain or control something when they don't have it, okay? So we're gonna do a couple more. Same thing, you're gonna go back and forth, come to a stop, wait a moment, down. If she doesn't do it, you go to a remote. The other thing that you can do is, if she's still not getting it with the remote, is step on the leash before using your hand to just limit her range. When you limit range, you limit options. So if you give her the full slack, a lot of times dogs will use the entire slack, and then once you shorten it, they'll lay down right away. Because now there's not too many options to try to decide with them. Okay? We'll try 2 more.
Heel.
Good turn.
Down.
All right, tap. Use your leash. I'll step on the leash. Tap. Tap. Try pulling up the leash under your foot to shorten it a little bit. Tap. 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 There it is. Good. Okay. So if that happens, because she set the bar really high on that first one, okay, don't try to rush through it. Okay. People tend to worry about, like, oh, it's got to be happening like this. I'm like, no. Not with pressure. You can make it. It could be really slow, but then once it clicks, it becomes boom, right? Because she has to think it through. She has to problem solve and go like, oh, the solution is this, okay? Main thing is always to try not to repeat, which you did a great job. You didn't say anything. You just jumped that leash, and then I had you pull it up just to limit a bit more, because she technically still had quite a bit of slack there, okay? Let's try one more.
Doggo, doggo, doggo.
Doggo, doggo.
It's all filming the movie.
Yeah, man.
You got a bike on your right, by the way.
Put your face away. He knows my bike.
Put your left, tap, tap, pull to your left, keep moving, tap, tap, tap. There you go. You got it. Good job. right? Tap, 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 tap. Good. Very good. I think when she scratched, she may have like removed the contact, but well, good. You made it happen. Okay. And what do you got now? 4. So in the home, you can practice this as well. If you're planning on using it outside, what I would suggest is you do use this in the home first. Okay, get used to it, correcting it and all that stuff. So like at our facility, when we're doing the daycares or the boarding trains, they're like training all day. And in between training sessions, we do a lot of this. Just don't move. Okay. So if you go to a restaurant patio, if you go to a friend's house, if you want to go to the park and like have a little picnic but not worry about Gili being all over the place, this is what that command is meant for. Okay, now this is a very strict command. It's lay down, and that's it. There's no sitting up, there's no standing up. I don't care how she lays down. So she can, if she rolls on her back with her legs up, but she'll hold it for 2 hours, I care about the 2 hours and I care about the way it looks. Okay? In the home, if you're gonna watch a movie, maybe you're gonna eat dinner, work from home or something, leash her up, collar her up. In the beginning, you need the leash, again, to limit her options. Once you start seeing consistently down, 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 right? Stay, and she's not moving and stuff, then we can start deviating away from the leash. But we use it in the beginning to give you a bit more means of control. You're also able to walk away from her, right? So like, let's say you're at your couch, you down her, and then you're like, I'm gonna go to the kitchen after 30 minutes, and you get up. Her inclination is most likely gonna be to get up and follow, but you didn't release her, so you would tap, 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 correct her first, and then go to the kitchen. Or maybe you go to the kitchen and she hears the pantry door open and she goes, oops, and tries to run over. I start remoting, I grab my leash, I lead her back by walking to general area. I don't repeat, I just use the pressure. She should lay back down again. I drop the leash, go back to the pantry, open it up again, do what I need to do, come back, go back to work. Okay? So once you've cued it the first time, we try not to repeat. The only time I may repeat is if maybe the dog didn't hear it. If the dog's panicking a bit much and I'm like, I think they didn't catch what I said, so they're not sure, so I'll say it again. And you'll learn to kind of see the difference between panicking because she doesn't know or confusion because she doesn't know, and like when they haven't heard anything or heard the command, or if they don't know what to do, they look a little bit different. So the more you work with her, you'll get kind of more tuned into this, okay? The last command we'll cover today is the place. We still have the recall. They were just called. Do you have a long leash by chance?
I do. I have a 20-foot.
You have a 20-foot? Good. It's like a nylon?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'll have you set up another session so we can just go over that recall stuff. And then we'll go over other things as well. But the last one before we go is the place command. Super simple, right? Go to this bed and go home. You can use a towel, you can use a blanket, you can use like we use the elevated dog bed, you can use a dog bed, you can use an ottoman, you can use a couch. It just has to be something that has a perimeter, okay? So the place command is a favorite for a lot of my clients because it's much easier, especially when you have a small dog, to correct. Because it's just go here, and I don't care if you sit down, lay down, stand up, or whatever, just don't step off of the area, okay? So if you have like a little blanket in your car that you carry with you, and you go to a restaurant patio, you just hop it down, place, she goes there, and it's a little bit more lenient. So once you down her, there's nothing that she can do aside from this, right? With the place, more options, so then you don't have to be so like focused on it. The way I look at them is like, let's say you're gonna go to have brunch with a friend or something, and you wanna enjoy that brunch, you don't have to worry too much about what Gili's doing. I use place, right? Because I don't wanna have to worry about Gili too much, but I wanna know that I have control. But if I'm gonna just be here reading, and I'm more able to, just through my leash or whatever, know what she's doing, down. Place is also fine, but if I know I can maintain a more strict position, then I can do that as well. If she can do this stuff, which is really hard, play stuff is super easy, okay? In terms of duration, right off the bat, you can do an hour, 2 hours. Don't feel like you have to build her up. She would do as long as 3 hours at our facility. Okay, so she's more than capable of doing it. The whole saying if you don't use it, you lose it is fairly true. In terms of the obedience, you're using this when you're outside, whenever you go for a walk, whenever you need it. Outside of that, if you go inside the house and she's fine, then don't worry about it. In terms of the e-collar, you have it on when you know you're going to need it. in my book, again, it doesn't go away. It's like people with cops, when cops are around, we do things differently. Same thing for the dog. This is kind of her cop. So she knows, like, okay, mom's got the collar on. It means I have to walk with her. It means I can just sniff wherever I want. All that stuff. And throughout the course of this lesson, she's actually calmed down a lot, right? Because now you're applying discipline. Now you're applying consequence, and you're also putting in, like, expectations, right? So once she understands what's expected, then you start to see a totally different dog, right? It doesn't mean that she can't be excited, she can't be happy and all that stuff, but it's when I say, okay, now you're feeding me that, okay? Questions about anything that we covered? How you feeling?
Good.
Good?
Really good.
Excellent. Yeah. So how old is she now?
She will be 7 months next week.
Sure, yeah. So people think with puppies that you can't get this level of control. You can actually do this as young as 2 months. But I don't, because people have a hard time with it, like psychologically.
Yeah.
But dogs bite each other. Like the mom comes in and they'll just bite the crap out of the puppies. Like I'm like, and what we're doing here obviously doesn't match that, right? But that's what they're meant for. Obviously we do it according or appropriate to the personality type. Couple distractions, but yeah, as young as 2 months. People think that puppies have to be crazy and all that. No, like you just have to know what you're doing and teach them. But you can have really good, reliable obedience. Even younger than this. So, but she's done great. She's easy to work with for the most part, other than the little moments being a diva. Expect that you may see that from time to time. Once you've worked through a couple of them and she's like, oh, okay, like I can't get away with this with mom, it shouldn't happen. Okay, it's pretty common. It's kind of like kids just kind of testing the boundary. So to give you an example of, like, she's like, I don't want to walk, and she's just pulling back. I just lightly pull forward, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, here I come. You just have to override her, but we're going up incrementally so that you don't just like come out of nowhere, because she's not going to register why that happened. So then she thinks, oh, the longer I do this, the more powerful this thing becomes over like time. Okay? There's no such thing as like too much in terms of application. Only like if you're doing things back to back, like if you said sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, like that gets annoying. But if it's just like down, don't move for 2 hours, and he'll walk with me for the next hour and stuff like that, because it's not redundant, you're not gonna like stress the dog out. Okay? So practice this stuff, and then when you're ready, set up for the recall lesson, and then you'll have that third one there. If you want to go over things again as a big overview, if you want to save it, or if you want to go over something else with Gili, I don't care. But this will at least will get you used to using the remote. And then also by that second class, if there's anything that's just not you're not associating too well with or transferring, we'll review that and clear that up and then go into the okay. Anything else? If you need anything else, you let us know.
Will do.
And then you can reach out to Maria. She'll get you scheduled in.